Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV, episode 540. You made the trip, and I'm DanK, all by my lonesome this evening, but that's not a problem. I got plenty of information and news to pass on. First thing I want to talk about is the Hempfest, the one that just went by. If you missed it, you missed a good one. The Emerald Empire Hempfest 2014 version just happened the weekend before last. Anyway, it went really well. It was the biggest one yet. We had a great turnout, more vendors than we ever had before. It was a little crowded, but it worked. I think everybody did pretty well, and we got more sponsors than we've had before, and I think that's going to be increasing. So it really went well. We are having an after meeting, though, a post Hempfest meeting. That's coming up pretty quick, so those of you watching this on YouTube, you might get the word soon enough. On cable, probably not. But anyway, we're getting together on July 30th, 6 p.m. to discuss what went right, what went wrong, and how can we do better next year. We're going to be meeting at the ectv.540.2014-07-30 studios on it's behind Sheldon High School. You turn off of Coburg Road by the Dairy Queen and go in the back there, and it's next to the KRVM studio. So that's all we have for announcements right now, but I wanted to get into an editorial that ran July 7th. We haven't had a chance to discuss it on the show, so I wanted to mention it. I won't read it in full, but it's called Marijuana Miscues, with a subtitle, Oregon Should Learn from Washington's Mistakes, plural. It says sales of marijuana for recreational use are set to begin Tuesday in Washington State, and the people who will manage a similar program in Oregon, assuming voters here approve recreational use of pot at the November election, would do well to pay attention to what's happening to our northern neighbor. Washington voters approved recreational marijuana 20 months ago, but there will be only a handful of retail stores ready to sell it Tuesday, including a single store in Seattle. Colorado voters approved recreational use of marijuana the same day Washington voters gave their blessing. But in Colorado, retail sales began 6 months ago at 24 stores. In their first month, Colorado's state license stores rang up $14 million in sales, adding $2 million in taxes to state government coffers. So the Washington situation appears dire by comparison. Its law went into effect in December 2012. Since then, more than 2,600 people have applied for licenses to grow marijuana plants for the retail market. But background checks, vetting of financing, and ensuring compliance with the state's pot tracking computer software slowed the processing of applications. As of last week, only 79 growers have been licensed, not enough to grow the amount of pot needed to reach the state's goal of capturing 25% of the market this year. So, in other words, and this is something we anticipated, or I say we, but the people that wrote Measure 53, taking consideration of these problems of Washington and Colorado and trying to approve an initiative, and which resulted in Initiative 53. There's a couple things with 53 I'm not really happy with, but I'm not about to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. And there's a lot of people that are, especially I'm finding medical marijuana people. A lot of them are against it because they fear that it'll jeopardize the program. It's actually written into Measure 53 that it will not affect the Oregon medical marijuana law or program. And the other thing that seems to me that is a lot of these people that are complaining about it's going to affect the medical marijuana program. In reality, they're worried about the medical marijuana program because they're profiting on the side from the black market. There's a lot of that going on in the medical marijuana, and I'm not saying everybody is, but there's plenty of it going on, and it definitely has an effect. And I believe that the majority of the medical marijuana people complaining about this initiative, saying they wouldn't sign it, and I believe that's their motivation. But I could be wrong, but that's the way I see it. But Measure 53, we'll be discussing that a bit later in some stories, but it looks pretty good. So, and we got Measure 53 is coming up, and I'll be discussing that in a minute. The other thing I wanted to talk about, this was back again on July 7th, and this is really a biggie. Marijuana dispensary to stay open. This was in the Register Guard with the subtitle, "The Greener Side license will not be revoked after the state health authority says it is not too close to schools." In an article written by Christian Hill, it writes, "State regulators have dropped their effort to shut a medical marijuana dispensary in downtown Eugene. Regulators decided that a complaint that the dispensary was too close to a school was not valid. It was the first time the Oregon Health Authority had sought to revoke the operating license of a dispensary since state officials began issuing them in March. The Greener Side at 1553 Oak Street appealed after the state agency notified it in an April 9 letter saying it would revoke its license. The agency had received an anonymous email saying the dispensary was operating within 1,000 feet of a school in violation of state regulations," spokesman Karen Fish said. A letter to the editor published in the Register Guard raised the same complaint. The letter and email had similar wording, Fish said. The Oregon Health Authority moved to revoke the license after its employees verified the proximity claim. Thomas Burns, the agency's pharmacy director, wrote in a follow-up letter to the editor of the Register Guard, but the state has subsequently reversed its position. The State Department of Education helped the health department build a database of all public schools. The authority turned to the internet to identify more than 350 private schools. The database listed the main campus of the network charter school, but not its 4 satellite locations, Burns wrote. One of those locations, near the intersection of Willamette Street and 15th Avenue, was within 1,000 feet of the dispensary. The state's online map that uses information from the database actually shows 2 schools within 1,000 feet of the dispensary. The agency eventually determined that the school had moved from the Willamette and 15th location, Fish said. The other school was Ophelia's Place, a nonprofit resource center for girls aged 10 to 18. The charter school used Ophelia's Place for classroom space, but Ophelia's Place isn't the school, according to Fish and an employee at the research center. The head of Ophelia's Place didn't return a message seeking comment. The agency withdrew its revocation order on June 30th while the appeal was pending. So anyway, so they're able to stay where they're at, which is great. These poor people. This is the same couple that before the medical marijuana dispensary law was in effect, they opened up the resource center and were helping patients. They were busted by local interagency narcotics team. No charges were filed. It was just hassle, how they are being hassled again. They thought they're going to have to move. So they did go through the anguish of it all, but at least they didn't have to move. So congratulations to the Greener Side, 1553 Oak Street. Good people. So if you go in, say hi from DanK. Now this is what gives me great pleasure, and let me talk. I mentioned I-53. Well, it definitely made it on the ballot. So this is a letter that we received from Anthony Johnson, who is the chief petitioner. He says, I-53 makes the ballot. Thank you so much to everyone that signed the petition, gathered signatures, volunteered, donated, or spread the word. And even bigger thanks to the freedom fighters that have put years and decades into this fight, especially those no longer with us. Treating cannabis use as a crime has failed, and it is time to end the harmful policy of cannabis prohibition. Please stay tuned to and sign up at www.newapproachoregon.com to stay engaged and learn how you can help the campaign. New Approach has gotten word from its pollsters that national opposition is preparing a poll, and depending on the results, may spend money opposing legalization here. Let's not let Kevin Sabet and Big Pharma dominate our airwaves. If anybody gets polled, please try to record or take down the questions. Thanks again, everybody. Very excited for the opportunity to help end cannabis prohibition in Oregon in 2014. And again, that was signed by Anthony Johnson. So we appreciate all his efforts, and they're really lining up a campaign, because you can believe our opposition will be coming back, and it will be well funded. So We have to be ready to counteract that. We also have to be ready to counteract and debunk the false information that's spread about 53, both accidentally and on purpose. Things like saying it'll damage the medical marijuana program. We've got to debunk that and nip it in the bud. The other thing I want to mention that I find, I'm always surprised at how many people don't know this. Felons can vote in the state of Oregon, and I can even reference you the law. So remember that if you're a felon, you can vote in the state of Oregon. So everybody register to vote, because this election coming up in November, and thinking, oh, I got plenty of time. Do it now, do it soon, while you're thinking about it, because it needs to get done, and get everybody around you to sign up and register to vote, and vote, because we need the numbers. So this is, I want to go through a bunch of the news articles about 53. This one is from the LA Times. It says Oregon marijuana legalization measure makes the November ballot. Oregonians will be able to vote in November on whether to legalize marijuana for recreational use. The initiative, submitted by the Marijuana Reform Group New Approach Oregon, received at least 88,500 valid signatures to qualify for placement on the ballot, election workers announced Wednesday. Treating marijuana use as a crime has failed, Peter Zuckerman, spokesman for New Approach Oregon, told the Los Angeles Times on Wednesday. We can't afford to wait. More lives are being ruined, more money is being blown into the black market, and police are more distracted from issues like violent crime. Oregonians are open to a new approach to marijuana, and we are going to fight for every vote. The measure needs only a simple majority to pass. If Oregon legalizes recreational marijuana, it would become the third state to do so, following Washington and Colorado, which both passed legalization initiatives in 2012. Alaska will also vote on a similar measure in November. And also, we believe Washington, D.C. is going to be on the ballot in November, too. So it's going to be an interesting election, especially considering this is an off-year election, i.e. not a presidential election. The Oregon ballot measure initiative petition 53 seeks to regulate the personal possession, commercial cultivation, and retail sale of cannabis to adults. Under the plan, taxes on the sale of cannabis are estimated to raise $88 million in the first 2 years. The proposal would allow adults 21 and older to possess up to 8 ounces of marijuana and to cultivate up to 4 plants. It would also give the Oregon Liquor Control Commission authority to oversee and regulate recreational sales, which would start in January 2016. Recreational area would be taxed at $1.50 a gram or $35 an ounce, according to the initiative. The revenue from the taxes would go to schools, law enforcement, drug treatment programs, and mental health programs. In a June poll, 51% of those surveyed said they supported allowing adults to use, possess, and grow marijuana for their personal use. So that's the good news. So, the polls are showing that it could pass. We can't count on that, but it's a good sign. We need to continue to work, and we need all the help we can get. So let's fight. Join us, won't you? Be right back. Thanks.
I'm a doctor.
I'm a lawyer.
I'm a journalist.
I'm a student.
I'm a teacher.
I'm a representative.
I have cancer.
The outdated laws of prohibition are more dangerous than the plant itself.
I lost my scholarship.
I was fired.
20 million arrests since 1965. This is getting ridiculous.
Our prisons are overcrowded with non-violent offenders.
We have the opportunity to change.
This is costing our country billions of dollars.
Making my family and I fight in a courtroom is difficult enough when I'm already fighting through chemotherapy.
There's no reason to be scared by tradition anymore.
We can stop this.
We can stop this.
We are the American people,
We can stop this.
and you have our support.
We're old.
Young.
Straight.
Gay.
We're every race and nationality.
And we're not going to give up.
You can tax it.
You can regulate it.
Apply age restrictions.
You can create millions of new jobs.
We can save our economy.
President Obama?
It's time for legalization.
Legalization.
Yes.
We.
Can.
This has been a public service announcement.
Welcome back to the second segment of episode 540. This is DanK, and I'm here to talk to you about Measure 53 and the legalization initiative. Wanted to throw in an announcement here. This is coming up this coming Saturday, August 2nd. The family of Jim Gregg invite you to Jim's memorial service. It's 11 a.m. on August 2nd at the Church of the Resurrection, located at 3925 Hilliard. Following the service, we will be gathering at Maury Jacobs Park for a celebration of Jim's life up on the Jim Gregg Inspirational Stage by the soccer field for a potluck meal and to share stories with each other. So I invite you to come to either one of those or both and celebrate Jim Gregg. He was a real inspiration and a good friend and a real warrior for the medical marijuana and legalization movement. So he'll be missed, and we'll be hearing some great stories. And that will be on the site of the Emerald Empire Hempfest stage, which we have Saturday. We dedicated the new name of the Jim Gregg Inspirational Stage. So anyway, that's Saturday, August 2nd, and 11 a.m. at the church, 3925 Hilliard, and then afterwards we'll be at the Maury Jacobs Park, and hope to see you there. So let's get back talking about Measure 53, the legalization initiative that made it on the ballot in Oregon. By the way, this is the second initiative to make it legalization, to make it on the ballot that since I've been an activist. It's the third one, I believe, in history. There was one in '86 that failed. But anyway, this is Measure 53, and it's definitely going to be on the November ballot. This is an article that was was on the internet through the Canapulse website. Oregon marijuana legalization advocates aim for the new gold standard. One of the country's leading drug policy reformers visited Oregon Tuesday to make a pitch for legalizing pot, calling the recreational marijuana initiative headed to the November ballot, quote, the new gold standard, unquote, of marijuana reform efforts. Ethan Nadelman, executive director of the Drug Policy Alliance, called Oregon's effort to legalize marijuana is the #1 priority for his New York-based organization. The political arm of Nadelman's group has so far contributed about $650,000 to New Approach Oregon's marijuana legalization campaign. Nadelman and Dave Koplak, a Portland attorney who helped draft New Approach Oregon's initiative, sat down with the Oregonian Tuesday to discuss the group's proposal, which would allow adults 21 and older to possess up to 8 ounces of marijuana. The recreational market would be overseen by the Oregon Liquor Control Commission. Their visit came on opening day of Washington's recreational marijuana program, which has been marked by concerns about low marijuana supply and high prices. Colorado's recreational market opened in January. The pair said Oregon's initiative is a departure from the Washington and Colorado models. For instance, Koplick said Oregon's marijuana taxes would be lower than those in Colorado and Washington, better positioning retailers to compete with the black market. Washington sets a standard for driving under the influence of marijuana and prohibits home marijuana cultivation. Oregon's initiative, meanwhile, does not impose an intoxicated driving standard and allows people to grow cannabis at home. I think that what we are going to see in Oregon is a hybrid model that draws on the best of both systems, Nadelman said. He said the initial experiences of Colorado, where the program has been praised by advocates and consumers for its relatively smooth implementation, and Washington, which is slowly phasing in its retail stores, will give Oregonians a good indication of what lies ahead. Colorado has been up and running for 6 months, and the initial reports clearly indicate the sky is not falling, said Nadelman. There is a lot of spin on both sides, but not that much has changed except you have the emergence of a legal industry. Nadelman acknowledged some key challenges that come with legalization, including how to deal with impaired driving and standards for marijuana-infused edible products, such as cookies and other treats. Colorado and Washington have grappled with questions of dosing, testing, and packaging for marijuana-infused foods, which in Colorado have led to high-profile cases of over ingestion. Nadelman said overeating a brownie baked with marijuana butter isn't fatal, but he said food products present challenges in terms of standardization. Koplik said the initiative reflects the work of not only advocates, but also national tax experts, including Pat Oglesby, chief counsel of the U.S. Senate Finance Committee from 1988 and 1990. On Oglesby's advice, New Approach Oregon opted to tax marijuana by weight early in the production process instead of at the retail end. Washington, by comparison, taxes marijuana at 3 levels, from producer to processor, processor to retailer, retailer to consumer. It's hard to see how people make money in Washington on this, said Koplik. New Approach Oregon also sought the advice of 2 veteran prosecutors, Norm Frink and Mark McDonald, both of whom have retired from the Multnomah County District's Attorney's Office. Koplik said it was Frink and McDonald who strongly encouraged advocates to reduce personal possession limits from the 24 ounces allowed under the state's medical marijuana law to 8 ounces. He said the former prosecutors also wanted to ensure that penalties remained in place for people not in compliance with the law. The initiative allows local governments to opt out, but such a move would be decided by a local ballot initiative every 2 years. Communities that opt out would not get tax revenue generated by marijuana sales. Under the initiative, revenue would be distributed according to this formula: 40% to the Common School Fund, 20% to mental health, alcoholism, and drug services, 5% to the Oregon Health Authority for drug abuse prevention, 15% for Oregon State Police, 10% to cities for law enforcement, and 10% to counties for law enforcement. Opponents of legalization worry about adolescent marijuana use. They argue that increased acceptance and availability will lead to increased marijuana consumption by teens. But Nadelman said adolescents won't be the prime target for marijuana consumption in a legal market. Instead, he said people 40 and older will turn to the drug for help, to help them relax, get relief from chronic illness, and improve their sex lives. People who are finding that taking a little bite off the marijuana pretzel each evening is better than the Ambien, or taking a puff off the vaporizer while watching The Late Show is preferable to a drink. He said opponents argue that Oregon already decriminalized small amounts of marijuana decades ago. Possession of less than an ounce of marijuana is considered a violation and doesn't result in arrest or jail. We're talking about Oregon, not Texas, not Georgia, and not the federal government, said Clatsop County District Attorney Josh Markey. Markey said New Approach Oregon representatives have misstated Oregon's record on marijuana arrests, given that most are violations. The group cited a Oregon State Police report that showed 12,808 marijuana-related arrests in 2012. The vast majority were for violation-level offenses. So there you have it, some more pros and cons. And Josh Markey, he's well known as a anti-pot advocate. Him and his buddy Lars Larson, if you ever listen to Lars Larson, you know how much of a clown that guy is regarding marijuana anyway. So we have another one. This is from the Statesman Journal. I thought this might be interesting. Salem/Statesman Journal. They're not real pot people as I think of them. The marijuana legalization initiative qualifies for the Oregon ballot. This is written by Anna Staver, and as I said, it was in the Statesman's Journal. It's on the 23rd of July. Oregon voters will get to decide December whether they want to legalize recreational marijuana for people 21 or older. The New Approach Oregon campaign announced Tuesday that the initiative cleared the Secretary of State's signature hurdle, earning the measure a place on the November ballot. This is our moment to be part of history and lead a movement, Dominic Lopez, Metro Regional Organizer for New Approach Oregon, said in his statement. Treating marijuana use as a crime has failed, but together we can win a more sensible approach and better the lives of Oregonians. The proposal would allow a person to possess up to 8 ounces of marijuana and to cultivate up to 4 plants. It would also give the Oregon Liquor Control Commission authority to oversee and regulate recreational sales, which would start January 2016. So we went through that in the other earlier articles. And then Kevin Sabet, who I mentioned earlier, is one of our biggest outspoken anti-marijuana spokespersons. This is his quote. Oregon already has some of the most liberal marijuana laws in the country, so the real question to proponents is, what is the rush? Said Kevin Sabet, the founder of Smart Approaches to Marijuana. Colorado is already showing negative impacts to drug driving and youth access to things like marijuana cookies and candies. Oregon's voted 55-45 against legalizing recreational cannabis in 2012. That effort, led by Paul Stanford, received little financial support from national marijuana advocacy organizations, which called the initiative poorly written. So anyway, the big boys have given the Oregon campaign some money this time, so that's definitely going to help. The Drug Policy Alliance has donated $50,000. Drug Policy Action has given $150,000. The marijuana advocate Philip Harvey donated $50,000. So in total, the new approach has raked in nearly $870,000 in campaign contributions. So if you have a few extra coins in your pocket, it'd be a good thing to donate to New Approach Oregon. And you can check it out on the website. That's New Approach Oregon. It's easy to find. So there you have it. And we have a few more stories that we can do on another day, but basically the same information. As you can guess, our biggest opponents are law enforcement. And what you wouldn't guess is our second, or another one of our opponents is medical marijuana. People that are afraid it'll mess up the program, and then there's the contingent of patients that are afraid it's going to mess up their black market game. So anyway, we'll see you next week. We'll talk about it some more. Thank you.